Hey, it's Eli, aka Atlas. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on drawing profiles, that is, the human face from the side. The first thing we need to know about drawing profiles is they're extremely easy to do. In fact, if you go by my techniques I'll be showing you in this video, there are only 3 steps. All the features you want to add to the face after that are entirely up to you. The human head consists of a fleshy outer portion surrounding the bony skull, within which sits the brain. I have laid out all of the different parts. The head rests on the neck and is provided support for movement by the 7 cervical vertebrae. Bit of a tough word there. The face contains sensory organs, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. The cheeks are on either side of the mouth, and these provide a fleshy border to the oral cavity, and this is very important to us as artists, and you'll find out why soon enough. As you see from the diagram that I've drawn up here, the human skull isn't a perfect circle. It's a little bit angular at the top, and it slopes downwards from the forehead, opening up to the nasal cavity right here. And I've marked out the different parts of it: frontal, temporal lobe, zygomatic bones, the mandible, which is your jaw, the ear canal hooks into this hole right here. And if we were seeing this with the skin on, the ear would come out a bit like that, where your eyes are. The parts listed here, there are only 3 that you need to really memorize: the nasal cavity, the ear canal, and the orbit, which is where the eyes go. And most importantly, memorize their position on the skull, because we will essentially be drawing over these. For example, here you can see that the eyes, even when you add the skin and flesh to it, the eyes still kind of retain their depth when they sink into the human face right here, as compared to the skull. You can see where the nose would hook into the nasal cavity. The nose would stand out a little bit from the nasal cavity. And that would become that. So memorize the positions as well as the shapes that you will be putting over these. Or rather, memorize the shapes underneath the flesh that you see, because all of these forms and shapes on the human skull are still visible even through the skin, and these really dictate how a person looks facially on the outside as well. Here's a little tidbit I threw in here, which is something to memorize, just for realism's sake. The average human has a bit of an underbite. The jaw juts forward just slightly from the top teeth and the bottom teeth, so they don't exactly meet right straight down across. It isn't like the mouth from the nose, and then the mouth and the teeth just go straight down, and the teeth come in. That's not actually how it looks. In real life, if you look at the real human mouth, even your own, you can just part your lips without actually spreading your teeth, keeping your teeth clenched. You can see that one is a little bit higher than the other. Something like that. So that is another thing to memorize for when you want to add different details and personality types and traits to your characters. Compared to the skeleton, again, that the human head isn't totally circular on the back. You can fill it out a little bit. Some people have, the backs of their foreheads come in a little more on the side. You can even do that if you want to. Drawing the human profile is really a case of just mixing and matching. So once you know a few of the steps, you can really tailor the heads to the way you want them to look and however you want your characters to look. So let's go to the first step. So the first thing we're going to do is draw some profiles in real time so you can get a better feel of my techniques, why I do what I do. I'll explain some of the process as we go. So let's just start with something basic. Like I said from the beginning, memorize the shapes of the human head from the skeleton, because this is going to dictate how the face looks when we're done. I always start my faces with a circle, and I think of this as the brain of the drawing. This is actually a technique I got from Andrew Loomis. I'll probably talk more about that later if you haven't already heard me talk about him enough. Start with the circle and another circle within that. Think of that as the ear canal. Start straight down from the front of the face. Everything we need is going to come through here later in a minute. And on the back side of this, you can bring the neck straight down. And everybody has the underside to their face. Underneath the jaw is the neck piece. And the mandible juts forward, as I told you, under the jawline. And from the chin backwards, I like to draw a little triangular piece that's underneath the neck. And that meets up to the mandible, the end of the jaw, and straight down into the neck muscles. From there, I draw what I like to call the shield. And makeup artists will do a thing where they highlight, I think they call it the triangle or something of the face. And this is basically kind of the same idea. All the features that you put inside of the face will be restrained to this shield area. It's almost like a diamond, but you can see from the drawing it isn't really a diamond. You can see it comes straight across the eyes, comes down diagonally to under the ear, but comes back diagonally towards the inside of the face, and juts straight down to the chin, or rather the middle of the jawline. And here's basically her face. You can already kind of see that a person could be built from here. And from there, what I typically like to do is now put on the forehead and the nose. If you remember from our skeleton, the human forehead doesn't necessarily go straight up, although some people do have foreheads that can do that. So really with profiles, there are no things that you need to write out, because there's a lot of freedom, because everybody looks different. If you wanted to make your forehead go straight up, you can have it go straight up. If you want it to go diagonally backwards, you can do that too. For this demonstration, I'll have the head go slightly backwards diagonally. So the forehead comes down into the brow ridge. Let's mark that. Brow ridge. And from there, the nose. And I'll talk more about noses in a minute. All the different kinds of ways you can draw them. But we'll just do this for right now. And here's an important part. All the features that come off of this face, off of the plane of this face, they end right at the line here. For example, the nose stops here, but the nostril goes inside a bit. And for that, the nostril does have a bit of thickness, so what I like to do is draw a line, kind of giving the nose a bit of a form, like this. And then the lips happen. You can either have the lip go straight down or curve a little from the philtrum. Let's mark this too. Philtrum. That space between your nose and your lip is called the philtrum. It bumps in twice. The top one can be a little farther than the lower one, unless you want the guy to have an underbite. That's another cool character trait as well, but a little more villainous, and we're not really going for that right now. And then the jaw, as you remember from the skeleton, it does slope outwards a bit, but not too much unless the character has a butt chin. Again, character traits. The lips come in. You can start that line straight across, but the human lip in the middle does have a bit of a bump to it at the bottom. And kind of like a heart shape happens a little bit from the side. It's a little difficult to describe, but from the side, think of it as a heart shape. And they call that the bow, Cupid's bow. Now I'm glossing over some of the details of this because I've already explained things like how to draw mouths and how to draw eyes, which I'm going to do in a minute, separately in the previous videos, which I will link somewhere around here maybe, or otherwise you can just see it during my outro, and you can click on that. And I already teach you how to draw the mouth and the eyes from the front and the side already, so I'm not going into too much detail about that. Now hear about the eyebrow. As soon as you lock the eyebrow in, and if you draw your noses the way I did here, you can use this ending line where the bridge of the nose starts at, which is right between the eye. You can use the space between the eye and start the eyebrow, like so. And as I said in the previous video on how to draw eyes, I typically like to have the eyelash from the eye on the opposing side of the face to jut out a little bit so you can see it. Gives a little more sense of depth. I guess we'll have this guy smile a little bit. And the cheek line. We'll get into the cheek line in a minute. And from the ear side, the ear starts right at the tip of this triangle. You can just have the line run across here, and then you can put the ear right there. Now some people have bigger ears, some people have smaller ears. Profiles give you more freedom than many other parts of the body. What kind of hair should we have this guy have? Let's give him just some nice flowing hair, I guess. Now we'll do a tutorial on hair in the future, a little more in depth than this. But if you can follow just the video and see how I'm doing it, you might be able to take something away from that too, hopefully. And I'm gonna ink this in a minute. Now, here's the thing. As soon as you get rid of all these guidelines, you'll see the depth and the form come to the character a lot more clearly, I should say. And you can keep some of the lines if you want. I do that often to give the face some type of character. For example, you could have used the line here at the bottom to give the guy some age, or maybe some stress lines, some tension lines, some age, whatever you want to call it. when you shade something like this in, there's a reason that I put this triangle under the jawline. If you wanted to have a light come from overhead the character, above the character, this would just be black. You would just fill this up. And here's a little important tip that I see a lot of people get wrong, even some, well, professionals. You don't ever really want to have the jawline run straight across like that. You don't want to draw that in. And the reason for that is that doesn't happen in real life. Even on people with very strong jawlines, the jawline separation from the neck into the face, even on people with really strong jawlines, only happens really from the front. But I'm gonna delete this. I'm going to erase this jawline under neck thing. And you'll see what I mean in a second. You can see we've already done 3 different kinds of noses. I apologize for the lighting, by the way. It is 4 o'clock p.m. as I do this video, so it's a little bit dark outside. But he's just about ready to ink. And I'll run you through the techniques as I do them, as I ink this guy. Just gonna run through. First thing first that I like to do, give my characters an outline. It's a popular look in American comics, which I do. Now about this heart, right, the Cupid's bow, you can either do the heart shape, curve at the top, or you can run it straight across. For a guy, I would probably run it straight across. For a girl, you might want to do the heart one to make the lip look a little more fuller, but that is up to you. In the bottom of the nose here, you can have the line from the bottom of the nose just run all the way across if you wanted to. Or you can just have it run halfway. Sometimes I've seen some people close it off like this. I do think that looks pretty good too. Again, you have a lot of freedom when it comes to profiles. Going to indicate where it starts and where it stops a bit. And the reason people put that line there is typically when they want to color it, they can just have the shadow go right there. That assumes, again, if the light is coming from the top of the character downwards. Eyelashes, you don't want to make them too full because this is a male character, but guys do have eyelashes. A lot of artists forget that. And then the eyelid, it's just a little crease running at the top. And the orbit, you guys remember about the orbit, because you can see that from the side if the guy's eyes are a little bit sunken in, and even if they aren't, you still should draw it a little bit because the human orbit is still a little visible. It's the groove when your nose goes in right at the middle and you feel between your eyes. That's what you're feeling the orbit. Eyebrows. You can do your eyebrows however you like to do them. Some people have thin ones, some people have thick ones. Let's just give these guys lines here, add some character. Since the other guy was clean shaven, we could always give this guy some facial hair. Might do that when we get back to it. Now under the neck shadow, the neck muscle. The ears, I'm going to talk about ears in a minute. There is a anatomically correct way to do it, and then there's just a way to do it, which is what most people do. Ears are really not that big of a deal, but I will teach you how to do them the right way if you want to know how to do that. And this guy will have dark hair, but I don't really want to run too much into that. I'm running out of light right now. Sideburns, which everybody basically has. If you grow hair, your own hair. If you're not bald, leave a little outline around the eyebrow to indicate that he does have eyebrow. And do the same thing for the eyelash too. I might come back and just leave this blank for now, but have it inked when I scan it if I decide to. And then the hairline. And the back of the head, the hairline depends on the hairstyle again. Most of this tutorial consists of it depends. So depending on the hairstyle, if the guy's got a mullet, his hair might go down farther. So that's entirely up to you as well. There we go. Male profile. Don't worry too much about the hair. I'll do another tutorial on that. So let's get to the next step of things you need to remember. The next step you need to memorize and make sure you really understand. Well, I should probably teach you about this ear thing before I get to that, actually. So you've got the human ear. There are 3 important parts of the human ear, I like to call it. You have the Y shape, which runs from the top corner down to the bottom. The nub, which is the little circular part, which I guess keeps the dust out of your ears. And then you have the lobe, which is the place where people pierce. And you can look at pictures of real ears if you want to study that even more. But those are the 3 main parts. You'd start with the outer shape, the nub, work your way into the Y, and then just fill the rest of the stuff out. And most people, when they draw ears, there are so many ways to do it. You can just draw, you can fake it, as long as you know those key parts. You can draw, start with the nub. Bring it up top, bring it back. Do something like that, for instance. And that would work as an ear too. Fake ear, but most people don't really go into books looking for ears, you know? So that's perfectly fine. It's a perfectly acceptable way to do ears also. So on to the next part. And I cannot stress this enough. Profiles have differing features based on ethnicity. When you look around you, look at different people, you'll see different features that you'll definitely want to incorporate into your stories. And this is important because it adds more realism to your stories and to your characters that you're drawing. So for example, for, let's say, more African or African American, black, more ethnic, however you want to call it, type of character, you'll see, for example, because features vary, like I've said before, but you might see a more fuller, a button kind of nose, something more rounder, a shorter forehead, a larger nose, fuller lips, and different hair textures as well. This is kind of like, it's still short, but it's a little fuller, not quite an afro, but not quite a buzz either. Because when you buzz the hair on just about any race, it'll end up looking like our first guy here. So you'll have a button nose, eyes that sit a certain way, different kinds of things like that. And these are good to study and memorize for your drawings. And when you draw people in profile, that makes it even more fun because you can have different caricatures even. Once you begin to realize all the different features around you, you can begin to do caricatures, kind of things into your drawings, for lack of a better word. So I'm going to do 2 examples of those caricature typefaces here.